Now, there's a great deal to be said about such harmony, not only for an individual life, but also for the life of a society. It's because as a world we have gotten ourselves so far out of harmony, so way off on the material side, that when we discover something like nuclear energy, we are still capable of putting into a bomb and using it to kill people. This is because our inner well-being lags so far behind our outer well-being. The valid research for the future is on the inner side, on the psychological side, so that we will be able to bring these two into balance, so we will know how to use well the outer well-being we already have. Then I discovered that there was some purification required of me. The first one is such a simple thing. It is purification of the body. This has to do with your physical living habits. Do you eat sensibly, eating to live? I actually know people who live to eat. And do you know when to stop eating? That is a very important thing to know. Do you have sensible sleeping habits? I try to get to bed early and have plenty of hours of sleeps. Do you get plenty of fresh air, sunshine, exercise, and contact with nature? You'd think this might be the first area in which people would be willing to work, but from practical experience, I've discovered it's often the last because it might mean getting rid of some of our bad habits, and there is nothing that we cling to more tenaciously. The second purification I cannot stress too much because it is purification of the thoughts. If you realize how powerful your thoughts are, you will never think a negative thought. They can be a powerful influence for good when they are on the positive side, and they can do make you physically ill when they are on the negative side. I recall a man of 65 years old when I knew him who manifested symptoms of what seemed a chronic physical illness. I talked with him and I realized that there was some bitterness in his life, although I could not find it at once. He got along well with his wife and his grown children, and he got along well in his community, but the bitterness was there just the same. I found that he was harboring bitterness against his long dead father because his father had educated his brother, and not him. As soon as he was able to relinquish this bitterness, the so-called chronic illness began to fade away, and soon it was gone. If you're harboring the slightest bitterness toward anyone or any unkind thoughts of any sort whatever, you must get rid of them quickly. They aren't hurting anyone but you. It is said that hate injures the hater, not the hated. It is enough just to do right things and say right things. You must also think right things before your life can come to harmony. The third purification is purification of desire. What are things you desire? Do you desire new clothing or pleasures or new household furnishing or a new car? You can come to the point of oneness of desire just to know and do your part in life pattern. When you think about it, is there anything else as really important to desire? There is one more purification, and that is purification of motive. What is your motive for whatever you may be doing? If it is pure greed or self-seeking or the wish for self-glorification, I would say don't do that thing. Don't do anything you would do with such a motive. But it isn't that easy because We tend to do things with very mixed motives, good and bad motives all mixed together. Here's a man in the business world. His motives may not be the highest, but mixed in with them are motives of caring for his family and perhaps doing some good in his community. Mixed motives. Your motive, if you are to find inner peace, must be an outgoing motive. It must be service. It must be giving, not getting. I knew a man who was a good architect. It was obviously his right work, but he was doing it with the wrong motive. His motive was to make a lot of money and keep ahead of the Joneses. He worked himself into an illness, and it was shortly after that I met him. I got him to do little things for service. I talked to him about the joy of service, and I knew that after he had experienced this, he could never go back into really self-centered living. We corresponded a bit after that. On the third year of my pilgrimage route, I walked through his town, and I hardly recognized him when I stopped in to see him. He was such a changed man. But he was still an architect. He was drawing a plan and he talked to me about it. You see, I am designing this way to fit into their budget, and then I'll set it on the plot of ground to make it look nice. His motive was to be of service to people that he drew plans for. He was a radiant and transformed person. His wife told me that his business had increased because people were now coming to him from miles around for home designs. I've met few people who had changed their jobs in order to change their lives, but I've met many more people who merely had to change their motive to service in order to change their lives. Now, the last part. These are the relinquishments. Once you've made the first relinquishment, you have found inner peace, because it's the relinquishment of self-will. You can work on this by refraining from doing any not good thing you may be motivated toward, but you never suppress it. If you are motivated to do or say a mean thing, you can always think of a good thing. You deliberately turn around and use the same energy to do or say a good thing instead. It works! The second relinquishment is the relinquishment of the feeling of separateness. We begin feeling very separate and judging everything as it relates to us as though we were the center of the universe. Even after we know better intellectually, we still judge things that way. In reality, of course, we are all cells in the body of humanity. We are not separate from our fellow humans. The whole thing is a totality. It's only from the higher viewpoint that you can know what it is to love your neighbor as yourself. From the higher viewpoint, there becomes just one realistic way to work, and that is for the good of the whole. As long as you work for your selfish little self, you're just one cell against all those other cells, and you are way out of harmony. But as soon as you begin working for the good of the whole, you find yourself in harmony with all your fellow human beings. You see, it's the easy, harmonious way to live. Then there is the third relinquishment, and that is the relinquishment of all attachments. Material things must be put into their proper place. They are there for use. It's all right to use them. That's what they are there for. But when they outlive their usefulness, be ready to relinquish them and perhaps pass them on to someone who does need them. Anything that you cannot relinquish when it was outlived, its usefulness possesses you, and in this materialistic age, a great many of us are possessed by our possessions. We are not free. There's another kind of possessiveness. You do not possess any other human being, no matter how closely related that other may be. No husband owns his wife, no wife owns her husband, no parents owns their children. When we think we possess people, there's just a tendency to run their lives for them, and out of this develops an extremely inharmonious situation. Only when we realize that we do not possess them, that they must live in accordance with their own inner motivations, do we stop trying to run their lives from them, and then we discover that we are able to live in harmony with them. Now the last, the relinquishment of all negative feelings. I want to mention just one negative feeling which the nicest people still experience, and that negative feeling is worry. Worry is not concern, which would motivate you to do everything possible in a situation. Worry is a useless mulling over of things we cannot change. Let me mention just one technique. Seldom do you worry about the present moment. It's usually alright. If you worry, you agonize over the past which you should have forgotten long ago, or you're apprehensive over the future which hasn't even come yet. We tend to skim right over the present time, since it is the only moment that one can live. If you don't live it, you never really get around to living it up. If you do live this present moment, you tend not to worry. For me, every moment is a new opportunity to be of service. One last comment about negative feelings which helped me very much at one time and has helped others. No outward thing, nothing, nobody from without, can hurt me inside, psychologically. I recognized that I could only be hurt psychologically by my own wrong actions, which I have control over, by my own wrong reactions they are tricky about. I have control over them too, or by my own inaction in some in some situations, like the present world situation that need action from me. When I recognized all this, how free I felt. And I just stopped hurting myself. Now, someone could do the meanest things to me, and I would feel deep compassion from this out of harmony person, this psychologically sick person who is capable of doing mean things. I certainly would not hurt myself by a wrong reaction of bitterness or anger. You have complete control over whether or not you will be hurt psychologically, and anytime you want to, you can stop hurting yourself. These are steps toward inner peace that I want to share with you. There's nothing new about this. This is universal truth. I merely talk about it. In my own everyday words, in terms of my own personal experience with them, the laws which govern this universe work for good as soon as we obey them. And anything contrary to these laws doesn't last long. It contains within itself the seeds of its own destruction. The good in every human life always make it possible for us to obey these laws. We do have free will about all this, and therefore how soon we obey and thereby find harmony both within ourselves, within our world, It's up to us. Summary. 4 preparations. Assume right attitudes toward life. Stop being an escapist or a surface lever, as these attitudes can only cause inharmony in your life. Face life squarely and get down below the fraud of its surface to discover its verities and realities. Solve the problems that life sets before you, and you will find that solving them contributes to your inner growth. Helping to solve collective problems contributes also to your growth, and these problems should never be avoided. Live good beliefs. The laws governing human conduct apply as rigidly as the law of gravity. Obedience to these laws pushes us toward harmony. Disobedience pushes us toward inharmony. Since many of these laws are already common belief, you can begin by putting into practice all the good things you believe. No life can be in harmony unless belief and practice are in harmony. 3. Find your place in the life pattern. You have a part in this scheme of things. What this part is, you can know only from within yourself. You can seek it in a receptive silence. You can begin to live in accordance with it by doing all the good things you are motivated toward and giving these things priority in your life over all the superficial things that customarily occupy human lives. Simplify life to bring inner and outer well-being into harmony. 4. Unnecessary possessions are unnecessary burdens. Many lives are cluttered not only with unnecessary possessions, but also with meaningless activities. Cluttered lives are out of harmony lives and require simplification. Wants and needs can become the same in a human life, and when it is accomplished, there will be a sense of harmony between inner and outer well-being. Such harmony is needful, not only in the individual life, but in the collective life too. 4. Purification. Purification of the body temple. Are you free from all bad habits? In your diet, do you stress the vital foods, the fruits, the whole grains, vegetables, and nuts? Do you get to bed early and get enough sleep? Do you get plenty of fresh air, sunshine, exercise, and contact with nature? If you can answer yes to all of these questions, you have gone a long way toward purification of the bodily temple. 2. Purification of the thoughts. It is not enough to do right things and say right things. You must also think right things. Positive thoughts can be powerful influences for good. Negative thoughts can make you physically ill. Be sure there is no unpeaceful situation between yourself and any other human being, for only when you have ceased to harbor unkind thoughts can you attain inner harmony. 3. Purification of the desires. Since you are here to get yourself into harmony with the laws that govern human conduct and with your part in the scheme of things, your desires should be focused in that direction. Purification of the motives. Obviously, your motive should never be greed or self-seeking or the wish of self-glorification. You shouldn't even have the selfish motive of attaining inner peace for yourself. To be of service to your fellow humans must be your motive before your life can come into harmony. 4. Relinquishments. Relinquishments of self-will. You have, or it's as though you have two selves. The lower self that usually governs you selfishly, and the higher self, which stands ready to use you gloriously. You must subordinate the lower self by refraining from doing the not good things you are motivated toward, not suppressing them but transforming them, so that the higher self can take over your life. 2. Relinquishments of the feeling of separateness. All of us, all over the world, are cells in the body of humanity. You are not separate from your fellow humans, and you cannot find harmony for yourself alone. You can only find harmony when you realize the oneness of all and work for the good of all. 3. Relinquishments of attachments. Only when you have relinquished all attachments can you be really free. Material things are here for use, and anything you cannot relinquish when it is outlived its usefulness possess you. You can only live in harmony with your fellow humans if you have no feeling that you possess them, and therefore do not try to run their lives. 4. Relinquishment of all negative thoughts and feelings. Work on relinquishing negative feelings. If you live in a present moment, which is really the only moment you have to live, you will be less apt to worry. If you realize that those who do mean things are psychologically ill, your feelings of anger will turn to feelings of pity. If you recognize that all of your inner hurts are caused by your own wrong actions, or your own wrong reactions, or your own wrong inactions, then you will stop hurting yourself. Thoughts. We can all spend our lives going about doing good. Every time you meet a person, think of some encouraging thing to say, a kind word, a helpful suggestion, an expression of admiration. Every time you come into a situation, think of some good thing to bring, a thoughtful gift, a considerate attitude, a helping hand. There's a criterion by which you can judge whether the thoughts you are thinking and the things you are doing are right for you. That criterion is, have they brought you inner peace? If they have not, there is something wrong with them, so keep trying. If you love people enough, they will respond lovingly. If I offend people, I blame myself, for I know that if my conduct had been correct, they will not have been offended, even though they did not agree with me. Before the tongue can speak, it must have lost the powerful to wound. To those who feel depressed, I will say, try keeping your surroundings full of beautiful music and lovely flowers. Try reading and memorizing thoughts that inspire. Try making a list of all the things you have to be thankful for. If there is some good thing that you have always wanted to do, start doing it. Make a meaningful schedule for yourself and keep to that schedule. Although others may feel sorry for you, never, never, never feel sorry for yourself. It has a deadly effect on spiritual well-being. Recognize all problems, no matter how difficult, as opportunities for spiritual growth, and make the most of these opportunities. From all the things you read and from all the people you meet, take what is good, what your own inner teacher tells is for you, and leave the rest. For guidance and for truth, it is much better to look the source through your inner teacher than to look to people or books. Books and people can merely inspire you. Unless they awaken something within you, nothing worthwhile has been accomplished. No one is truly free who is still attached to material things or to places or to people. We must be able to use things when we need them and then relinquish them without regret when they have outlived their usefulness. We must be able to appreciate and enjoy the place we were tarry, and yet pass on without anguish when we are called elsewhere. We must be able to live and love in association with people without feeling that we possess them and must run their lives. Anything that you strive to hold captive will hold you captive, and if you desire freedom, you must give freedom. The spiritual life is the real life. All else is illusion and deception. Only those who are attached to God alone are truly free. Only those who live up to the highest light there find their lives in harmony. Those who act on the highest motivation become a power for good. It is not important that others be noticeably affected. Results should never be sought or desired. Know that every right thing you do, every good word you say, every positive thought you think has good effect. All people can be peace workers. Whenever you bring harmony into any unpeaceful situation, you contribute to the total peace picture. And so far as you have peace into your life, you reflect it into your surroundings and into your world. That which is received from without can be compared with knowledge. It leads to a believing, which is seldom strong enough to motivate to action. That which is confirmed from within after it's contacted from without, or that which is directly perceived from within, which is my way, can be compared with wisdom. It leads to a knowing, and action goes right along with it. In our spiritual development, we are often required to pull up roots many times and to close many chapters in our lives until we are no longer attached to any material things and can love all people without any attachment to them. You cannot leave a situation without spiritual injury unless you leave it lovingly. If you want to teach people, young or old, you must start where they are, at their level of understanding. If you see that they are already beyond your level of understanding, let them teach you. Since steps toward spiritual advancement are taken in such varied order, most of us can teach one another. Physical violence can end even before we have learned the way of love, but psychological violence will continue until we do. Only outer peace can be had through love. The way to inner peace is through love. Concentrate on giving so that you may open yourself to receiving. Concentrate on living according to the light you have so that you may open yourself to more light. Sometimes difficulties of the body come to show that the body is just a transient garment, that The reality is the indestructible essence which activates the body. After you have found inner peace, spiritual growth takes place harmoniously because now you governed by the higher self, will to do God's will and do not need to be pushed into it. Nothing threatens those who do God's will, and God's will is love and faith. Those who feel hate and fear are out of harmony with God's will and are likely to have difficulties. All difficulties in your life have a purpose. They are pushing you toward harmony with God's will. There is always a way to do right. What we suffer is from immaturity. If we were mature people, war will be no problem. It will be impossible. Of course, I trust the law of love. Since the universe operates in accordance with the law of love, how could I trust anything else? For light, I go directly to the source of light, not to any of the reflections. Also, I make possible for more light to come to me by living out to the highest light I have. You cannot mistake light coming from the source, for it comes with complete understanding, so you can explain and discuss it. Judging others will avail you nothing and injure you spiritually. Only if you can inspire others to judge themselves will anything worthwhile have been accomplished. Never think of any right effort as being fruitless. All right effort bears good fruit, whether we see results or not. Just concentrate on thinking and living and acting for peace and inspiring others to do likewise. The results in God's hands. You cannot change anyone except yourself. After you have become an example, you can inspire others to change themselves. In a conflict situation, you must be thinking of a solution which is fair to all concerned, instead of a solution which is of advantage to you. Only a solution which is fair to all concerned can be workable in the long run. Your motives must be good if your work is to have a good effect.